Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Dog Walk Talk brought to you by DawgsHQ. As always, I'm your host, Jake Roos, and with me, as always, back, I guess, this time now, Palmer Toms. Palmer, what's good, brother?
Yeah, Jake, you were ready to have me leave. I listened to that podcast and I heard the slander. I'll accept I'll accept an apology anytime now. So
hey, I heard the tears falling all the way in McKaysville, brother, no doubt. No, we appreciate everybody who tuned in to that recruiting podcast. That was a fun one to do. If you're looking for some insight on some of the guys who came last weekend, go check it out because we covered most of the top names that were there, and we'll have more to come over at DawgsHQ for sure. Palmer, let's just dive right in on this one, man. Dogs do it again. And, now a unanimous number one in college football, received all 65 of the coaches poll votes, had a lone one out there last week to Iowa, but Hawkeyes fall to Purdue and Dogs on top again, handling a great opponent, took down Kentucky, which I got to give a lot of credit to Kentucky. I thought that was a very well coached, very talented team. I said last night it was the best. That was the best Kentucky team I've seen since I've been watching Georgia football, and they deserve a lot of credit. But hey, Dogs handled business, man. Once again, I was on the road for a little bit of it. Palmer, what did you get to see though? What were your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with the Georgia defense here because to me that they allowed 2 touchdowns and they weren't happy about that, but they played with an incredible sense of pride. You saw it late in that game and in the way that they handled that last drive. Kentucky drove, I think it was 22 plays, 24 plays, something like that, 75 yards. They had driven 74 yards. They were on that 1 yard line. And you saw, it was a, 30-7 game at that time, 23-point game. Had zero impact on the outcome of win or loss. Whether Georgia was going to win this game, whether Kentucky got in the end zone or not. But you saw the pride and passion of that defense show up, on that goal line, try and, do everything that they could to keep Kentucky out of the end zone. First and goal, they stopped Will Levis over the top. A couple of Georgia players looked like they thought that they had the ball out. You saw Dan Jackson, a couple other guys pointing, directing Georgia's way, saying, hey, we got this ball out. We got it. The officials rule it dead and end up being second and goal from the 1 again. They try and push it up the middle, stuffed again. And Georgia players thought that the game was over at that point. I think there were 7 seconds left and Kentucky was scrambling to try and get a play off. As the clock was running down, Georgia fans and players thought that the game was over. Mark Stoops calls a timeout with 4 seconds left. That it upset a couple of Georgia fans. You heard the boos. You heard the boos as they were coming out of the stadium too. You
gotta assume it hurt some wallets as well. I think to miss out on that. That was where the real heartbreak was yesterday.
Bingo. But Georgia, they didn't give up a touchdown there. We talked to Adam Anderson and N'Kobe Dean after the game, and they were like, man, we won on the scoreboard, but we consider that a loss that we let them in our end zone there. That one hurts. That one's going to sting and stay with us. And that says a lot to me, because when I look at the defenses, what the defense's job yesterday was, it was to shut down Chris Rodriguez, stop that Kentucky run game. He was the SEC leader coming into the game, had 7 carries for 7 yards. Check. Then, that makes Kentucky one-dimensional. If they're in, second and long, third and long, rather than second and medium, third and short, they're going to have to pass the ball. And without Josh Ali on the outside, their second option, they were very limited to that first option and Wan'Dale Robinson. And he's top SEC leader in terms of receiving yards coming into Saturday. Georgia had, gave up 12 catches to him, but they limited his damage to 44 yards. He did get in the end zone on that last play. But kind of a cheapo touchdown there. If you're looking at things, my point is that they didn't give up a big play touchdown to Wan'Dale Robinson, which he is fully capable of. I think his, average reception coming into this game was 16 something yards. I mean, it was insane. Every time he was getting the ball, it was a deep ball threat down the field. Kentucky wanted to take their shots, but they weren't able to capitalize on them because Georgia was putting the pressure on. Will Levis took him down several times, and really did a good job of making Kentucky play left-handed. So to me, that was the biggest takeaway defensively. Offensively, kudos Stetson Bennett again. 3 touchdowns, 250 yards. Brock Bowers comes back, in full force, gets over 100 yards on the day, 101 and 2 touchdowns on 5 catches, 6 targets from him. So, to me, Bennett looked really solid. He was 14 of 20, put some balls in tight spaces, found those tight ends a lot. Like I said, 5 receptions for Bowers. Darnell Washington had 2 for 37. John Fitzpatrick had 1 for 20. I felt like the running backs played well. Overall, Georgia didn't have the most explosive day on the ground, excuse me, they had a very explosive day, but it wasn't, they didn't, rack up a 200-yard game again.
Right.
Would have been their 4th in a row. They rushed for 166 and 1 touchdown on the ground. But where Georgia really impressed me offensively was those explosive plays. I wrote it up this morning in Rest and React. If the stat system has a big play function on it, and that is a passing play of 15 or more yards and a rush for 10 or more yards. Georgia had 17 big plays in this system. If you just look at plays of 20 yards or plus, 20 plus yards overall, whether that's rushing or passing, they had 10. So, Georgia went 2 of 7 on 3rd down. That's not a great stat. And Kirby said that, in full, Halloween season, he said that was spooky. That looking at that stat is a little bit spooky, but when you can capitalize on explosive plays like they were able to do, you're still able to win games going 2 of 7 on 3rd down.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, honestly, in most cases, I think 2 of 7 on 3rd down normally doesn't spell a dominant win. But like you said, they were able to take advantage of those plays. I thought Stetson Bennett threw some beautiful balls from what I saw. That pass to Bowers right there, right before, right in the as he was going into the end zone, I guess. Just a little touch pass. I mean, beautiful on that. Hit him right in stride. Looked like the McConkey pass, not quite as loaded up, obviously, but some of that just hit him in stride and let the guy make a play. Impressive there as well. I guess. Overall, like I said, Georgia did what they did. And the reality of it is, we wrote this in the poll story over at DawgsHQ. This is probably it for ranked opponents. I mean, you're Florida probably not climbing back. Well, they're certainly not going to climb back in there by the time you play them because they're on bye this week as well. But Georgia Tech doesn't feel like there's a path for them. Doesn't feel like Missouri is going to get there. Tennessee, I doubt it. After the fall against Ole Miss and the garbage throwing. But I think that it was.
I'll stop you there. I think that there's a path for Tennessee. I mean, I wouldn't predict a win over Alabama. But it wouldn't shock me if they beat Kentucky. I mean, that's a team that Tennessee has had their number. And, if they at least look good against Alabama and then go beat Kentucky on the road,
I don't know.
I think that you could maybe sneak your way in.
That's a 3-loss team.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
That's a 3-loss team. I just don't see it for the Vols.
Well, and four if you lose to Alabama.
Right. I think that they've vastly exceeded expectations this year, but I do think that it's I just don't see them climbing back into the polls. So that's probably it for Georgia. I mean, with where the ranked opponents come, I remember when we were sitting back anticipating this stretch, right? Like this was going to be the big one, right? And then you've got Florida still, but this is a whole different Florida team than the one that started that run. If you look back 3 weeks now, Florida doesn't look like Florida anymore. So a lot of
they were. I mean, they were saying they were coming off of that tough, close loss to Alabama when we were first starting that run and talking about this October stretch. You're absolutely right that this is not the same Florida team, and it has been 3 straight ranked opponents, and Florida is still Florida. but you're right. It's not the same Florida team, and this schedule, at 7-0 headed into the bye week, it's setting up for potentially 12-0. I mean, I think the expectation would be 12-0.
No question.
If you've got 5 straight unranked opponents, and the way that Georgia has played, if you're really the top team in the country, you're finishing this season 12-0.
I agree completely. I mean, someone even asked me about it. I think it was one of the KSR guys last week about, what's the expectation? And I said, look, a loss in an SEC championship or a loss in a playoff game, that feels a lot different, right? That's a big, there's a lot of difference between that and an in-season loss. This is, at this point, there's really not a lot of excuses for Georgia to not close this thing out in perfect fashion. That's just my opinion. I think it would be a huge, huge letdown. I think that fans would go crazy. I think that, it'd just be a bad look personally. And it doesn't, I know it's the SEC and any team can win any week. Right. And everybody's going to have a bad game at some point, but the way that their upcoming opponents have played versus the way Georgia has played against ranked opponents, there's just not a lot of margin for error, in my opinion there. You mentioned the bye week, and we are getting ready to get into that. If you're like us, perhaps it's a welcomed bye week. I'm sure Kirby Smart is welcoming it with open arms. Dawgs need a week off, just to get some guys healthy, get some bodies back. Moving into this, Palmer, I guess when you're looking at this Georgia team, what's the most important things to get done over the course of this bye week? I mean, who are the important pieces that you need to get back in order to, finish this stretch out strong?
I mean, do we need to start anywhere other than JT Daniels?
I mean, look, Stetson's been great though. That's the thing. I mean, Stetson's been really good. My leaning right now personally is more so Chris Smith. I think you want to get Chris Smith back involved and fully healthy. Because I think he's played really well this year. I think it would be advantageous to get a wide receiver healthy. Any of them. Take your pick of who you want. Going into this, I would have probably said JT, but given how Stetson's played the last 3 weeks, I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but it would be, of course you want him healthy and back. And I think if he's back, he gets the start. I still don't think that there's much of a controversy, or there shouldn't be. In my opinion, Stetson's done what he's been asked to do, but I think when you're talking about 2 of 7 on third down, go look at what JT was doing on third down before he left. That to me is where the difference lies in between these two. He's a little bit more precise in those moments where he needs to be, and I think that could be advantageous for Georgia moving into this. I mean, JT Daniels is a more polished passer than Stetson Bennett. Yes.
And that shows up on those third downs, like you said. To me, watching JT warm up these last couple of games against, Arkansas, it was very light in what he was doing. Last week against Auburn, very light in what he was doing. Did a little bit more than he did against Arkansas, but not as much as he did yesterday against Kentucky. And yesterday, I was down on the field yesterday looking around and talking to some people saying, hey, that kind of looks like a pregame I'm playing kind of warm up. He was putting some zip on the passes that he was not putting on it a week ago, 2-3 weeks ago. To me, I think that JT Daniels is still, I agree with you that Stetson Bennett has played admirably, and that you have to, you feel very confident in what you have in Stetson Bennett and what you can be with Stetson Bennett. In my conversation, with several, win a national championship with Stetson Bennett at quarterback based on the pieces that are around them. You've got the incredible playmakers that need to get healthy. You've got this incredible defense that is, going to dominate teams that they are playing. You could probably win games. And Georgia has won games. They've won 3 straight top 25 games against, talented teams.
Stetson Bennett this year is not Stetson Bennett of last year. He's
100%.
He's come a long way. He looks like a different player. And I'll tell you this, I'm not really worried about the idea of a quarterback controversy for Georgia, because I think really they're in a great spot with JT when JT comes back, because let them fight it out at practice. Let them go and let the best man take it. And whoever's got the hot hand, go. I don't see any problem with it at this point. There's no controversy. It's not. It doesn't feel like a controversy to me. Will he? Won't he? Like it doesn't matter. Just whoever can win the game, just put that guy in and just go with it.
Right. And going back to what you said about he looks like a different quarterback than he was last year. Last year he was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, his 2 losses that he got as a starter were against the eventual national champion, where the defense didn't do much to help him.
Yep.
And he was playing pretty good against Florida, the eventual SEC East champion, and his defense didn't help him there. I mean, Georgia was up in that game when Stetson Bennett went out.
Sure.
So if he doesn't go out, who knows how that game goes, because, the tables turned once you turned to Dwan Mathis at quarterback there. And Georgia was not able to do much. Now, the play calling changed. The defense didn't do much to help. How would that have been played out with Stetson Bennett at quarterback? Who knows? You can't tell. But Georgia knows that they feel very confident in Stetson Bennett. I mean, Kirby said so after the game. He said, look, guys, I don't know I know y'all don't think that Stetson was all that great last year, but to us, Stetson was pretty good. That Stetson did his job. And like I said, lost to the eventual national champion and the eventual SEC East champion.
Sure.
So, two top 10 teams that he lost to potentially top 5. I mean, Florida had a case for the playoff. I mean, that was a good Florida team last year. So, not a huge knock against Stetson Bennett. They didn't look great all of last year, but he's looked a lot better this year. So I still stand by what I said. I think getting JT Daniels back and healthy is the most important thing. But I completely agree with you that there are other guys that Georgia, if JT Daniels is not, healthy and it has to be Stetson Bennett, you feel pretty good in what you've got there. And if the other guys around him, whether that's Jermaine Burton, Marcus Rosemy, Arian Smith, Dominic Blaylock, maybe George Pickens. Wow, I just named 5 wide receivers. I just realized that.
It's like I said, just a guy. Just get one guy.
1, 2, 3. If you can get any of those guys back, it would help, because Georgia has been rolling out Adonai Mitchell, who has stepped up but was not the player. This is not the player they expected to have.
Leading the receiver. Lad McConkey and AD Mitchell were not expected to be leading the receiver corps. Period.
Exactly. Kyrus Jackson.
Nobody came into this season for Georgia saying a tight end is going to lead this team in receiving. That's
and among the wide receivers,
Georgia, and B, a freshman.
And among the wide receivers, Lad McConkey is going to be the leading receiver. Yeah. I mean, which says a lot about what Georgia has done up to this point. I think that give credit where credit is due. Kirby Smart has done an incredible job. Todd Monken has done an incredible job of this offense and play calling to the guys that he has healthy. Now, going back to the original question here, because I know we've gone on a huge tangent, getting those guys healthy in this bye week has got to be priority number 1. Like I said, those 5 wide receivers, if you can get any of them back, huge help. If you can get Kenny McIntosh back, I mean, Georgia is deep in that running back room, but if you can get Kenny McIntosh back, he adds a little bit of a different element than some of those other guys. Maybe not a completely different element than what James Cook does, but McIntosh is a huge part of what Georgia does offensively and a huge part of what they do on special teams too.
Yeah.
I think throw in, Jamari Salyer played yesterday and had his ankle taped up, way more than I've seen it. So you want to get him back completely comfortable, so that's not even a thought in the back of his mind. You want to get guys on defense healthy, in whether that's Amir Speed out at corner, like you said, Chris Smith at safety. With the way that this secondary is banged up, you need those guys healthy.
Yeah.
You know, with losing Tyki Smith hurts because not because he was making a huge impact on the field, but because he was there to provide depth if someone went down. And Georgia is down right now.
I guess we haven't even, you broke that story. We haven't even mentioned it. By the way, great scoop by Palmer Toms over on DawgsHQ. Breaking the news, Tyki Smith out for the year with an ACL tear. Like you said, I think that's a concern. Not that the guy was out there and doing it, but the fact of the matter is you saw him the week before having to step into the game in an instance where a couple guys went down and suddenly you were turning to this guy who hadn't played all year. The secondary, yes, I think secondary depth is still maybe the biggest concern for Georgia, just because there's not a lot of pieces back there. And if you're going to be able to challenge the defense, that's where you're going to be able to do it, is in the secondary.
And maybe that's the second, no pun intended, but maybe that's the secondary goal going into this bye week is getting those guys in on the back end of the defense, comfortable, getting some of those younger guys ready to play. Whether that's David Daniel or Kamari Lassiter, Nyland Green, some of those guys, young guys, are very capable of Javon Bullard too. Yeah. Yep. Completely, didn't even cross my mind there, but he's gotten some first team reps, throughout the year. So you want to get those guys feeling comfortable in their roles. That's another thing that Georgia needs to address in this bye week. So I think health is absolutely number one. The bye week comes at a perfect time, a time to, Georgia went light last week against Kentucky in preparation. Kirby told us that Monday practice ahead of Kentucky. You had to. Coming off of two physical games against Arkansas and Auburn, and going into another one against Kentucky with the way that Georgia was banged up, you had to. And it
didn't even guarantee any. I mean, you still lost a guy for the year, even going light. So,
and you really didn't get that many guys back that were banged up. Right. So, Georgia went out there and was hopeful to get Jermaine Burton back, hopeful to get Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint back. Two guys that Kirby felt confident that they were going to be back. And both of them played. Both of them were in there for, I think it was one snap. Georgia called, Marcus Rosemy ran out there for a play. Georgia had to call a timeout on a third down, because of a miscommunication. And then he ended up going back out after the timeout, but I believe that might have been his only play. I want to say Jermaine Burton was on the field at that same time. But there was certainly one point where he was in the game and I saw him trotting off the field. But neither one of those guys made a huge impact. And I think that that's something that Georgia's goal last week in going light was to allow those guys to get back and feel comfortable and be able to make an impact. And they weren't able to do that. So going into this bye week where you don't have to prepare for an opponent on Saturday, where you can take things a little bit lighter. Maybe you take the pads off on Monday or Tuesday, and you go through, just a walkthrough and let these guys, take some time off.
Let them heal.
Right. So, I think getting guys ready to play and step into bigger roles, I think this is always a time that you see that. Some of these young guys, some of these freshmen step up and play big roles, in the later half of the season, and you got to get healthy. So to me, those are the two biggest concerns for Georgia right now. No better time to address those concerns than the bye week.
No, completely. I agree as well. Also a little bit of time to, touch base with the recruits, spend a little bit of, spend some time doing that. And we're coming off of another big pickup on the recruiting trail for the Georgia Bulldogs. Last, Wednesday, I guess it was. Georgia gets the commitment of 4-star tight end Oscar Delp. Not a huge shock. I don't think anybody was anticipating anything other than that. But look, don't let that diminish the pickup, all right? This is a guy who can really do it all. Had a chance to speak with his head coach after the commitment. Basically said, that this kid he's the new breed, man. I mean, he's what, Brock Bowers is. And I wrote this in the breakdown. He's what Brock Bowers is, except Oscar Delp actually might be 6'4". Brock Bowers is probably 6'2.5", if we're being realistic about it. 6'3", maybe. he's doing it with another couple inches probably. I mean, he's a big bodied kid. And so, a guy who's capable of splitting out wide, a guy who can play tight end in line, he can block in line if you need him to do that. Drop into H-back, serve back there. I mean, just does it all. And, is a guy that Georgia, quite frankly, I don't think they could have afforded to miss on because they kind of put all their eggs in the Oscar Delp basket. They did not recruit a lot of tight ends in this class. They didn't spend much time recruiting anybody that they did offer other than Oscar Delp. So, I mean, it was a big pickup, but it was also a really necessary one. And shout out, by the way, to Todd Hartley, man. What a role that guy has Georgia on between Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington, John Fitzpatrick's coming. John Fitzpatrick's done a hell of a job. And he's already got Pierce Spurlin committed for 2023. I feel good about their chances with Lawson Lucky in 2023. I mean, this guy's on a tear, and that's weird to say for a tight end coach, but he's really sort of brought back that, Georgia had that stretch there in the 2000s where they were in the early 2000s, your Ben Watsons and your Leonard Popes and it was a position they were known for, even outside of running back. I think they very much put themselves back in there. It's hard to ignore what Brock Bowers has done, certainly as well. But like I said, big pickup. And then Thursday night, we were out at North Gwinnett catching the North Gwinnett Collins Hill game where Kirby brought in the Kirby copter and flew in on the baseball field over there at North Gwinnett. Came in to, see that game. There were a few guys, for him to check out there. I really think that one came down to sending a message to Travis Hunter, who was on the sidelines for that one and out there. Cheering on his Eagles. Now he came out and said on TV, like, hey, stop the noise. Don't, we're not decommitting. I'm a Knoll, shut it all down. And I get that. It's what he has to say. And I really think I think he means it, to be honest with you. I think that he's really invested in this commitment. But I'll tell you this, he's shown up now to Georgia 2 games in a row. Kirby Smart takes the chopper to go see him. It's clear that there's at least some conversation happening, right? That we can all at least admit that. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that continues to play out over the course of the season, especially based on, the second half of the season. How do the Noles perform? What's kind of the vibe around Florida State? Like I said, I'm not predicting a Travis Hunter flip. Don't put me on record saying anything like that because that's not what I'm picking right now. I just think that things are clearly getting interesting when it comes to Georgia and Travis Hunter. All right. Like I said, I guess that's it for me. I mean, it's bye week, baby. Let's relax, pour ourselves a couple cold beers and kick the feet up and, watch some football that's not Georgia football this weekend. God bless them. They've been playing well, but their games aren't that interesting for the most part. So maybe we'll get a couple good matchups this weekend. Palmer, you got anything else, buddy?
No. I'm with you. I think that this is a big opportunity for Georgia to, regroup and, get ready to go for the rest of the season, regroup, recruit, and get ready to go. Kirby said so after the game and said that, hey, this is a great time for him to, spend a little bit of time with his family. I would say the same goes for all these coaches, but also he emphasized, I love recruiting and I'm going to get out there and go see some of these kids. So, certainly stay tuned on DawgsHQ this week. And, I'm sure we'll have some news for you this week throughout as Kirby hits the recruiting trail, bye a week, but no time off for, no sleep for us over here. There's always news and, certainly an exciting time to be a fan of Georgia and certainly an exciting time to be covering Georgia.
No doubt about it. All right, folks, enjoy your bye week. Make sure to swing over to DawgsHQ during it because like Palmer said, just because the dogs are off doesn't mean we are. We're still going to be pumping out content and have you covered on all things Georgia over there. So come join us, come check us out, come hang with us. We would appreciate it. For Palmer Toms, I'm Jake Roos. This has been Dog Walk Talk. Catch you guys next time. Thanks.